Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here with the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top entrepreneurs, founders, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create custom processes and tailor-made business systems so businesses can thrive and grow. And today's guest is James McDonough. Hi, James.
Hi.
It's so good to have you on this podcast. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Excited.
Yeah, we're going to talk all about processes and procedures, my favorite subject. And we're going to talk about a process documentation platform. Why is it important? And also, why is it important to automate and be able to actually create automatic workflows in order to save time? And I'm sure you're going to share a lot of those examples to get our listeners to see that this is the way to go in terms of saving and doing things more efficiently, saving money, increasing profit, etc. So you are the CEO and the founder and CEO of Fatfinger. I love that name, right? So, yeah. Which is a digital standard operating procedure software that empowers frontline people to do their work correctly every time. So that was reading your bio, but it's really, it's creating you created a software where you can document the SOPs and you can also create workflow and get people to collaborate so they can actually ensure that those processes are being implemented and followed by all.
Yeah, that's what we spent over a decade doing. It's happy to tell you about a bit about the story. Yeah,
I'd love to hear the story. Absolutely. So how did it get started?
Yeah, so a long time ago, I grew up in Canada and working for some pulp and paper as a frontline person, doing the getting covered in hydraulic grease and doing the safety shutdown or plant turnarounds. And so had about 6 years all through high school, university, frontline experience. And then fast forward, did my MBA, went to business school, went into management consulting in Lean Six Sigma, and spent a lot of time on oil and gas, mining, industrial sites all over Asia Pacific. And saw that mobility was going to be big. 11 years ago now, the iPad had just come out, if believe it or not. People are having their first digital devices, or touchscreen digital devices. And as a consultant, I was concerned with at least the larger organizations. They have their content put down already. They've got their stuff standardized, which I highly believe in. And, that's the first step in process maturity. But the frontline people were not involved in that. And so we wanted to create a platform that was extremely easy for, we call them Bob, who knows his or her job intimately and then put that on a digital device. And then get all the benefits from going digital, from accountability to looking at data to integrating to their systems, and wanted to make it just incredibly easy for Bob to take their idea, which, could be a safety inspection, it could be a asset inspection, it could be, there's thousands of workflows out there, make it really easy for Bob to take that content and put it on their iPhone, iPad. And so now they can interact it with the device and then have all their content at their fingertips, and then, automate or schedule things that need to be done so work doesn't get, missed. And so they can do their job correctly and safely every time. And now we're digging deeper into the data side of things, of identifying bottlenecks and using the data flowing through their workflows or through their procedures, processes, to uncover ways to be more efficient or more effective or safe at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how it all started a long time ago. And, had the ups and downs of every tech company goes through. And yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Wow. So what, well, maybe now you started this on this topic, I'm also very, I'm interested in processes and procedures, but also in the entrepreneurial journey. So what will be some of the ups and downs? Like, how did you, from that idea to where you're at today, what are some of the anecdotes or key points that you would like to share?
Yeah, like most companies, we started in a garage. We started actually in Perth, Australia, in Western Australia. At the time, I was a management consultant, doing Lean Six Sigma projects, going out and workshopping and, defining process and streamlining it and all that type of stuff. And started with some other people, and then you go through the journey of we raising money. We moved to Silicon Valley, and now we're based in Houston, Texas, where primarily industrial companies use our platform. So ExxonMobil is our biggest client. They've built thousands of workflows on us. So if you think of a workflow as let's say safety observation or incident form, or refinery room 1, pump B rebuild checklist. That's one use case. And so they've built thousands of those workflows across on us and have done so across the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's break it down so we can actually break it down to our listeners so they can understand what the platform is all about. And
Sure.
obviously they can go to it's fatfinger.io, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
It's easy to use. It's designed for the Bobs of the world, the Bobettes.
The Bobettes too. I mean, we can't just have Bobs. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and it's, you have great case stories on that website for sure. So what is the biggest need that you saw that led you to this idea of like, hey, let's automate it. Let's create this app. Like, what were you seeing that was not done or not done good enough?
Yeah. So I was dealing with the enterprise, right? So companies typically, from my understanding, you're helping companies document processes, and that's an absolute critical step. Typically, our customers have them content already. We think of it as content. And then how do you move from content to the work execution? So like right where they're actually doing the work, where they're potentially unsafe or unproductive. How do you start making that content basically at their fingertips, and then to the people who need it when they need it? So like, go through steps 1 of 3 with Bob on the front line, and then maybe automates to George, who has to review that, who goes to Susie with the final approval, and have that all happen seamlessly without, we think of balls getting dropped. And then how do we use the data to improve that over time? And so we saw the gap of how do we involve the frontline people to be empowered to do that themselves without IT or else, anyone helping them achieve that.
Right. So give me a specific example. Let's talk about a specific example. I know you have many case studies. So what will be, what industry should we choose?
So oil and gas.
Good. Oil and gas. So something like a company like Exxon then that basically distributes. So do they distribute the actual gas to their gas stations?
They use us all over their business, from manufacturing, refining, midstream, pipelines to upstream.
Good. So let's choose an example of one workflow, one procedure that can be understood by our audience.
Yeah. So a classic example is from safety. They have a safety observation. So that is a tool used to promote awareness of risk. And so someone is on site, and before they start work, they want to observe what might, be dangerous around them. And so that typically is a piece of paper. People don't really fill them out. They're tick and flick exercises. They don't know when they're doing them, how they're doing them. That's just a really simple example that most industrial companies will use. And so they can build that, what we think of as a workflow on Fatfinger in a few minutes. And then now that workflow is available to anyone on the site to go through. So they could take a picture of that hazard. They could identify, hey, there's a working at heights type of hazard. And if they select that, now they can get start going down specific questions regarding to working at heights, like, hey, are you tying down your tools or yourself, or, are you having someone spot the ladder that you're going to work from, or, so you start baking in the institutional knowledge that maybe a new person who has never done a working from heights thing, that they've identified it, but now we want to start using the training content or knowledge to guide that person to be safer at the end of the day. And so there's that whole thing, just that one simple example can be really tailored, making that person as safe as possible.
Right. So what I see here is basically we have the, like let's say before, or even if we were documenting the process, right? So we will document, okay, so this is your safety procedure, or this is the safety, it's not even the whole entire procedure, the procedure of what do you do at the beginning of the day. So somebody typed it in a Word document somewhere hidden, or maybe on their computer, maybe on the shared drive at the best, but in some folder. And yeah, it's a great idea, but then nobody uses it because they don't have access. And maybe they hire somebody new and they go, yeah, let me find it where it is in my Word document. We find it, we print it, we give it to them. Great. It doesn't get used. What you basically are creating with this app is that we're taking that checklist. It's documented in a place where everybody has access because everybody can log in there. And then not only is it documented, you don't just read it, but you actually implement it, because this entire checklist or the procedure on how to do a safety inspection is coming to life because of all the different components that you can see on the app. And then you have to actually fill it in. And I know you can take photos, you can, fill in, you can send messages, and then you can direct it to the next person, maybe send it to your supervisor, right? The next one on the workflow to approve it and look at it. Yep. So you are actually creating that interaction and bringing those processes to life.
Exactly. And then you can see who is doing it and who, more importantly, who is not doing it. And so you can say, hey, this site is really great, but this site just doesn't do it at all. What's going on there? Management from there. So, and then if the company can then zoom out and say, from an aggregate, now we have a PPE problem. We're good from working for heights, but people aren't using their PPE. Then we can focus attention there. So you start using the data that is flowing through those workflows to improve.
Absolutely. So that's from the enterprise standpoint, right? I mean, like a big company like Exxon. But let's say we have a listener right now that let's say they own an HVAC company, okay, with maybe 10 vans, 30 to 50 employees. How can they use this app for their benefit?
Yeah, we're a SaaS platform. So we have clients that are, the one-man band person that needs to some sort of way to professionally show that, hey, I followed all these steps, and I'm going to export it and send it to their client and have a nice packaged PDF saying this is what I did and how I did it, etc. We have those clients all the way up to, really large organizations. So scales with, that's the beautiful thing of software, is it scales per user.
Absolutely. So let's take the example I just gave. So let's say you have an estimator in a company, in a construction company or HVAC company. What would be some examples of a workflow that can be used to automate or to use an automatic workflow basically for that particular aspect?
We think of a Bob and or Bobette. What is their day, right? They start their day, maybe they have a toolbox meeting or a shift handover meeting that they're communicating with their team or their supervisor, whatever. Like, yeah, I arrived on site, I'm here, I have my tools, I've got my whatever process to start the day, like a team huddle, and they want to record that for just make sure that people are aligned to what they should be doing for the day. So that's one process that might be on there. And then a safety thing, if they have that culture of maybe they have a journey management process or workflow that they do at start work, like a safety observation or a job hazard analysis, something like that. And then they get into their actual job. So if they're, HVAC, or they have to do that service. And so did they follow the actual process of, delivering a standard high quality of work. So that might be something on Fat Finger where they said, yes, I removed my shoes when I went into the home, or I did the job, checklist ABC, and here's a photo of the work. And yes, I gave it to the client or exported for the client's signature. Who knows what their actual job is, all those steps that the company wants them to follow and confirm that they've done that. They might have an incident during that time and they maybe have to follow that procedure. And then maybe at the end of the day, they have to capture a timesheet or some sort of record of either their hours or the client on site hours or something. Maybe a project variation where now the client asks them to do something different off of scope and they want to capture that for billing. So yeah, we just think of what is all of those process and procedures of the day in the life of, and then maybe some week or monthly things as well. And that starts standardizing everything that they want done. And then we think of, well, what are some things that should be happening that are not, like in industrial facilities, they have to do routine, some sort of inspection, like inspecting fire extinguishers, and they have to have the compliance behind to prove that they did that. Or they're just wanting to make sure that assets get looked at. For the HVAC ban, did we look at it monthly to make sure there was nothing going wrong with it so that it's, usable when they need it? So there's, lots of it. We think of the day of what those people do. It's getting all that stuff, content out there, and then how do we interact with it so we know it's actually being used.
Great. So what changes do you see when companies actually have their processes and procedures documented and are using automated workflows? What are the biggest changes that you have seen?
Yeah, it depends so it drives some sort of KPI around the operation. So whether it's if it's production or throughput, if it's a manufacturing thing, if they're focused on safety, it's a reduction in incidents, or environmental impact, or or days outstanding, if it's a field ticket and they're trying to collect faster from customers. So some sort of operational KPI is the first thing that we see. Second is just a reduction in cost. So kind of time is money, and reducing the hours spent in retyping things or trying to follow up data that you don't have. So that's the second. There's four. So third is a reduction in IT spend. From us, we're a platform, so we can start consolidating. If they have a safety app that only does safety, then they can usually move those workflows to us and reduce vendor spend, so they don't have to have Bob using 10 different apps, which they get frustrated because there's too much to take on. And then last is just an empowerment, a culture of empowerment. So now the frontline people are taking more ownership and kind of is doing the continuous improvement type culture, rather than kind of the command and control ivory tower, doing all the workflow setup. Now we've empowered the people actually doing the work to do that.
Yeah, so let's talk about the empowerment and the culture part. So what specific examples do you see? Like, how does that happen? How does the empowerment happen? Because you can still dictate the procedure all the way from the top. Like, okay, you have to fill out the safety checklist. So this is the way you do it, etc. So how do you actually make sure that everyone is empowered?
Yeah, so that our whole thing is making it ridiculous. It's called Fat Finger. It's like super, super easy to use for big finger non-IT people. So they're not IT geeks like myself and our team. We're focused on making it just dead simple, that non-IT people can use this and not need, teams of people to help them create this stuff that just creates friction. And so we think of it just from our job is just make the product really easy. But that's what regardless what product people use, is it easy enough for the people who are actually using it to change or configure themselves? Because if it's not, then it gets stale and not used, and there's friction. So yeah, that's our whole thing, is make it super, super easy.
Okay. So
And that's easy to create or move content onto the platform, basically build workflows, easy to use workflows, easy to schedule like the things that need to be done and tasks, et cetera, and then easy to see and interact with the data. So there's multiple pieces there that have to be very, very simple, or else it gets put in the too hard bucket.
Right. So I agree. So in terms of you told me, you answered the question on why processes and procedures will basically, and automated ones, will create better efficiency, better profitability, but it's also how do we get them used by all? And it's honestly, it has to be a simple system that is not complicated things, because otherwise it's not going to get used, right? It has to be easy to use. It has to be nice. It has to be like something that will be attractive to use, right? Easy to log in and easy to enter the data. So then, and then easy to also see it on the other side, like whomever you have the people in the field, but then you also have the people that are receiving the data that they can utilize and to do something with it. So it's definitely creating that environment of efficiency, of inclusiveness of everyone, and really making sure that the processes and procedures can be adhered to.
Exactly. Yeah, it's got to be easy, or else it's people are busy. They're busy, and it goes in the too hard bucket, and that's not good.
Absolutely. So, what would you say to a business owner that is listening to us right now? They know that they need to document the processes and procedures, but it's on their list, but they're not doing it, because of different reasons, too busy, not enough time right now, not the right timing. I need to produce more. I need to get more clients. I need to get more customers, it's not being done. What will be from your experience as a consultant that work with international companies, enterprise companies, small businesses, etc. What is the urgency of actually documenting your processes and procedures?
Yeah, you're speaking to the choir, but I believe in it. I don't, you don't get on an airplane without the people going through the checklist. If the pilot doesn't have the checklist, you're not, you don't want to be on that flight. So I believe in standardization. Like there's checklist manifesto, I'm sure you've heard of and read, from saving lives in surgery to all of that. It happens with standardization.
Right.
And if you're not producing a quality product in a standard way, then you open up to risk, and risk costs money or lives or whatever it is that is important to your business.
Absolutely. It's true. And, you for me, you're preaching to the choir, but I think we're kind of like more singing a duet to the audience in terms of like hearing it from another voice. But I agree. It's the risk mitigation. It's the consistency and efficiency.
And there's a couple from I spent most of my career with large enterprise, right? They spend millions and millions of dollars doing this because it adds value. They just don't do it because they like to spend money on it. It drives value. From there, if a refinery goes down for an hour, that's an expensive event, and potentially lives are lost, et cetera. So from serious stuff, but then all the way down to a small business owner that just can't take a vacation, or if they have turnover in their organization and those things aren't documented, then you just have that much more of time and headache trying to, basically get someone up to speed on a new way of doing business. So it frees people from the operations. And it's just, that's the first step of getting outside of your business, is getting that stuff documented the way that you want it done. And then people can easily follow that and not be stressed out about not knowing what the expectation is.
Absolutely. I agree. And it is, it's an investment. So why do you think entrepreneurs or smaller companies balk at that? Why do they drag their feet and don't do it? Those that don't do it, some of them do. And the successful ones really say, okay, this is what saved my business, and this is how I scaled and expanded because I had the processes and procedures. But in your opinion, what are the obstacles what is the think behind that for the smaller entrepreneurs?
I think they overthink what needs to be done, or they obviously just don't have the background in it. So it's like, I don't know how to fix my HVAC. I just don't know where to start. So I believe in either getting help or learning how to do it, or just starting simple and, take your core couple workflows that drive your business and get those things moving, and then you can add complexity later. Just getting the core stuff out is just so fundamental.
I agree. That's a great advice. You have to start somewhere. You start with the core, you see the results, you get a buy-in from all the employees, and then you continue to the next one and the next one and the next one. So I agree with you.
That's just experience share around that. Like, so from the large enterprise side of things, we see projects get bogged down on people wanting to design the perfect process versus just how about we just get what we currently do onto Fat Finger, for example, like with us. Let's just start there, and then we can tweak all the workflows. That's very easy to do. People get bogged down with committees or multiple review cycles or whatever of trying to design the perfect machine, which just doesn't exist. Whereas, the 80-20 rule, just get it out there and see, refine as or iterate as needed. Absolutely,
I agree. Well, James, it's been a great having you here as a guest and talking to our listeners about processes, procedures, how to make sure they're being implemented. And hopefully we convinced our listeners that having well-documented processes and procedures on a platform that is easy to use and implement and is capable to also document and basically put into use your workflow is important. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I love chatting about this.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.